What's up, guys? Welcome back to another daily Bible reading snapshot. Today we're reading Judges 8 and 9, and the story of Gideon continues. Really, Gideon's story lasts yesterday's DBR and today's DBR, and really extends into the next story of the next judge. So let's check this out. In Judges chapter 8, Gideon has just defeated some of the Midianites, and he's on his way to really finish the job. But as he's on his way, there's some cities that do not support Gideon. Cities like Succoth, cities like Penuel. And as he goes through, he asks for them to help. He asks for supplies and help and lodging, and they don't give it. And when they don't give it, Gideon says, when I destroy them, I'm going to come back and get you guys too. So you can see how Gideon is kind of an intense guy. So that's exactly what happens. He does end up defeating them, and then he does end up judging those other cities. So crazy stuff that happens here, especially what happens at the end of Judges 8. Gideon essentially makes an idol. And it wasn't just Gideon, it was Gideon's whole family really gets together and makes this idol. But they get all this gold from all these people. It says 1,700 shekels of gold, and that's from verse 26. And it says they made this ephod, which was like this thing that was to be worn, at least in the Levitical sense, by the priests. But they made this golden thing that was like it was like they're supposed to wear. But really, it served as an idol. So what happened was they would come and bow down and worship this idol, and they would serve this idol. So you see how Gideon went from being a servant of the Lord, doing what God wants, to now he made it all about himself and his family. So the end of this chapter talks about his death, and it talks about how much of a snare that idol was that they built, their family, and the consequences that happened in the next chapter. So it says they had a son named Abimelech. So Gideon has a son named Abimelech. And there's also another name for Gideon here. It's Jerubbaal, which comes from yesterday's daily Bible reading about how he destroyed that idol of Baal, which is interesting. Now he just makes his own idol. So that happens here. And then in Judges chapter 9, we see that Abimelech grows up to be a bad guy. And what he does is kills his 70 brothers. So Gideon has 70 sons. Think about that. 70. 70 sons. And Abimelech goes and he kills all of his brothers. All of Gideon's sons he kills, except for one that runs away. And then we're going to see what happens there. So obviously it's Abimelech versus all these other brothers. He goes and he kills all these people. Also in this city called Shechem, he lays siege to it and he burns most of the city Shechem. And also he does the same thing to a city called Thebez. But in this city, instead of lighting it on fire and destroying it like we talked about earlier with Shechem, it says that these guys got together and when the siege was happening, they dropped an upper millstone, and it was actually not just it was a lady in the town, dropped this millstone, which was this big rock, dumped it on Abimelech and destroyed him, and really it killed him. And he wanted not to be killed by a woman, so we see how that all plays out. And I just want you to see, you might say, wow, it went from Gideon defeating the Midianites yesterday to Gideon making an idol, to Abimelech killing his brothers, to Abimelech being killed and laying siege to all these cities. What happened? Well, if you remember, it's that they don't follow the Lord. It's that they gave up following the Lord, especially for this generation and a half that we focus on today. They're not serving God. And when they don't serve God, look at the terrible consequences. Look at the horrible sins they commit. And we're going to continue to see how Judges just gets worse and worse and worse because the people move farther away from serving God. And that should remind us, those are the natural consequences of not serving God. It is horrible, horrible sins that we never thought we'd commit. Just like Gideon's family, I'm sure Gideon never thought his son would kill all of his other sons, but that's what happens. He ends up killing all of his sons. So horrible here in Judges chapter 8 and 9. And we see that when you abandon God, this is what happens. So speaking of chapter 8, we're going to turn to Luke chapter 8 here. In the middle of Luke 8 is what we're studying today in the DBR for the New Testament. We see that Jesus does something that we see in the other Gospels. He calms the storm. And he's out there on the water. He calms the storm. But the point of the story is not just that Jesus has power. That's one of the points. But the other point is the rebuke that he gives for their lack of faith. And the interesting thing is, the next couple scenes, we see people have faith, which is interesting. The disciples didn't have great faith, but we see Jairus have faith about Jesus saving his daughter, and also the man with a demon, many demons, legion, he has faith, and he trusts Jesus, and his demons are taken out of him. So it's just interesting that where Jesus rebukes the disciples and he says, you need to trust me, we see some other people start to trust Jesus and to profess their faith in him. And Jesus does amazing things for them. So as we see this, I think it should remind us, and it should be a warning for us, right? Do we have faith in God? Do you have faith in God? Not just a general trust in his existence, but do you rely on him? And hopefully today's DBR will push you to rely on God even more. And specifically, as we see all the things that Jesus did for these people, we need to rely on Jesus. We need to trust in him, because there's a lot of things that might be going on in your life right now that are really hard to bear on your own. And Jesus says, I want you to trust me. And specifically, when we talk about trusting Jesus, the most important thing we talk about is trusting in Jesus for salvation. That is the highest, that is the most important, that is the top of the list thing to trust in Jesus for. And hopefully this passage gets you to reaffirm that trust in Jesus. So thanks for reading the Bible with us. We'll see you again tomorrow for another daily Bible reading snapshot.